Good morning. Thank you for joining today's CSUBUY P2P review procurement session. So this session today is designed to provide you with a comprehensive review of the CSUBUY procure-to-pay system, specifically focusing on the procurement functions. So by the end of this session, you should feel more confident navigating CSUBUY's procurement processes, approvals, and system functionalities. So today's training will focus on the key functionalities within the system, covering requisition approvals, procurement actions, and purchase orders. So our agenda consists of 4 demonstrations designed to provide you a viewing guide to understanding this role and the best practices within the system. So let's start with an overview of the requisitions and demonstration number 1. I'm going to demonstrate how to locate and view a requisition in the system for procurement approval. Now, this process is very similar to what we covered in the last session for DOA approvers. So for those that attended, this should feel a little familiar. Now, this is a fundamental step in managing your workflows efficiently. Next, we'll dive into procurement functionalities. We'll walk through how to approve, forward, return, etc. Understanding these actions ensures a smooth approval process and prevents any unnecessary delays. For our third demonstration, Ashley will explore the additional requisition functionalities, such as adding or deleting a line, making price revisions, and adjusting taxable lines and chart field information. These tasks are essential for making necessary modifications to requisitions before approval. And then finally, we're going to cover purchase orders. This section will focus on how to view purchase orders, check their status, manage distributions and exports, and process change requests when needed. So by the end of today's session, you should have a clearer understanding of these key P2P processes. So let's go ahead and navigate into the live system. This morning, I'm going to be utilizing the test system for my approval since I do not have any active procurement approvals in the live system. Let's navigate to the shopping homepage. If you remember, this is your default shopping homepage. As we scroll down, you can see My Approvals folder. Right here, there's a requisition to approve. This gives you a little glance into the requisition. It's going to state who the requester is, which folder it's in, how many days it's been in the folder, and it gives you a straight hyperlink to the requisition to approve. You can also locate your requisitions to approve as a buyer under Order Search, Shortcuts, My Approvals. You can also locate from the Orders flyout Approvals, Requisitions to approve. And lastly, in the action items, the flag icon on the top right, you can see you have requisitions to approve. You have to take action on them. So let's go ahead and navigate to the requisition we need to approve. Right here, we can see here's our approvals folder. We have requisitions to approve. This is also where you can locate your change request to approve, vouchers to approve, and so forth. Right here, you get a glance into the actual requisition as well, the supplier, the assigned approver, myself, the date and time it was created, the requester, and the amount that the requisition is for. It's hyperlinked so you can navigate straight to the requisition. Okay, so here's our requisition to approve. I've already assigned this requisition to myself, so let's go ahead and start viewing the requisition. As we scroll down, we can see the other participant information. We went over this in our last session. Who prepared the actual cart and who submitted the requisition into workflow. You can also view if there's any internal notes and attachments. These are internal notes and attachments for your campus. There's also a section for external notes and attachment. Those are routed to your supplier. As we scroll down, we can start to view the line levels. Up on the top here, it gives you a glance at what the line levels are. So here's the supplier chosen, how many line levels you have. So you have 3, and the subtotal amount, $134. Below that, you can see the supplier details. You can hover over the icons next to the supplier details to see more about them. So this supplier is a California local supplier, and their payment processing is ACH. Then you can start to scroll down and view the line levels. We can see right over here is the gray line. It's going to indicate what this is. So this is line level 1, the item description, the cost details, and the form that was utilized to create this line. There's a hyperlink to the form so you can access it to view how the questions were answered by the requester. As we scroll down, we can see here's line level 2, the item description for the line, cost details, and the form that it was utilized to create line 2. And the same for line 3. As a procurement specialist, I may want to go ahead and view the questions that were answered in the form. We can do that by selecting the hyperlink form and navigating to view how the questions were answered by the requester. I like to go straight to the actual general information right here, and we can view. So this is not a blanket order, meaning that's not an amount only. We can see there's no renewal for a previous purchase and no performance start and end dates. Once you have completed reviewing the questions that the requester answered for this form, you can navigate back to the requisition by selecting the hyperlink on the top left, back to requisition. Another section that you may want to view is the header section. You can view the comments. So if any other approvers or requester had made a comment on this requisition, you can go ahead and review those. Typically, there's going to be attachments, such as a quote. So this is where you can view the attachment. You can also view the attachments, as we talked about earlier, in the body of the actual requisition. Say, as a buyer, that you need to attach a document. As you can see, you do not have the ability to attach something on the requisition after it's submitted into workflow under the Attachments tab. However, you can attach something from the Comments tab if you remember. Go ahead and select the plus sign next to the requisition, and then you can choose a file to upload, or you can link a file as well. And then you would select the check mark next to it. So let's go ahead and choose a file real quick. And it's going to show up right here in the gray box. You can only attach one attachment at a time, and then you'd select the check mark next to it. Once you have completed sending the check mark, you can go ahead and view the attachment on the Attachment tab. The next step is what you would want to do is view the workflow on the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, you can view who has approved it already. This one has been bypassed for me. So once we look at Ashley's live environment, we'll be able to go ahead and select and see who did the actual DOA approver and secondary review. Now that we have reviewed the requisition, we can take action on it. You can go ahead and select the drop-down and view that you have the ability to approve the requisition, return it to the shared folder, meaning that this time you do not want to approve the requisition. Maybe there's someone else that is within your shared folder that should be approving it. You can place it on hold. Now, if you place the requisition on hold, nobody can take action on it. No one can add comments, add attachments, or approve their workflow steps. You have the ability to return the requisition to the requisitioner. This allows the requester to go ahead and make any necessary modifications or changes to the requisition and submit it back into workflow. It would then start at the very top where it goes submit and go straight to the DOA approver. This allows the requester to go ahead and make any necessary modifications or corrections to it and allow it to go back into workflow. You can then have the ability to forward it. So say that you feel that there's another buyer that's better suited to go ahead and approve this requisition, you have the ability to forward it to another buyer. And then lastly, you can reject the requisition. So if the requester on this requisition, there's no ability to make any corrections, such as it's the wrong supplier, or a totally inaccurate requisition, you can reject it. This means that the requester can no longer make any modifications or corrections on it and resubmit it into workflow. Another area right next to it is the 3 ellipses. If you click on that, you can see that you have the same functionalities from the dropdown, except a couple more. You have the ability to add a comment through this ellipses, add notes to the history, or copy this requisition to a new cart. As you see on this requisition, this is the last workflow step, the procurement review. And then it's going to go into 2 background validation steps. These are all system-generated steps. And what's great is even before the requisition has been completed, it creates the purchase order. You can see on the header, you have the ability to view a PO preview. If you click on this, it's going to show the actual preview of the purchase order that's going to be created once it gets to this Create PO stage. Now that I've gone through the requisition, looked at all the lines, went back into the form that was utilized to create this requisition, viewed the questions, now I have the ability to go ahead and approve and complete this workflow step. Great, now you can see that all my approvals have been completed. I'm going to go back to the shopping homepage. You can see now my approvals folder has been cleared out. All right, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to allow Ashley to go ahead and share his screen, and he's going to go much more deeper into the actual procurement functionalities and the abilities that you have to do on the requisition itself.
Thanks, June. Okay. This is working in the live system. As you can see, it's virtually the same as what June was demonstrating, except instead of a blue, the screen is populated with black. So that's essentially how you tell the difference in the marketplace. If any of you have those, are red. So navigating within this system, as June pointed out, you can see your approvals from various places. Here, you can go to your approvals under the shortcuts. We also have action items. Here at Cal Poly, we have a number of different ways to look at things. We see our more than just our individual queue. We can see the other buyers' queues, and they all come in under each flag, if you will. And we can, if they're not assigned to a buyer, we can take them and work on them in the event that someone is out. So that's a choice that our campus made individually, and I think that it works well for us, but may not be for everybody. We go to requisitions in our queue, have one that's been set up specifically for this demonstration. As June pointed out, this is a basic requisition. It has got one line item on it. The total is $1 with tax. It's $1.07 based on our tax rate. There are many things you can see within the requisition. I'm going to assign it to myself. That means that I can work on it. And once it's been assigned to me, no one else can work on it. In most cases, the buyer is not assigned. You can do that here by finding our buyer number. Say, when you get an red X or any flags in the workflow area, the system will not allow you to proceed until you've taken the action related to that flag. So as we can see, we have a lot of things that we can do with the PO. We're doing a blanket order, for example. We can go in here and check this amount only blanket PO box. Now it will be amount only, so you could apply more than one invoice to the order. If it is not amount only and it's for a lot amount, the system will only allow one invoice to be processed. So if it is truly a blanket order, ensuring that that's checked is fairly important. Otherwise, it can't be paid. Other things that we can see on the requisition, we can adjust tax rates. See if that's still here. It is not. So on the line level, you can see that our SLO County tax rate is listed here. We can make it taxable and non-taxable. And for our campus, we have a number of different tax codes. Fuel, there's farm tax. We are in county space, so we pay the standard California tax rate, 7.25%, but we do also pick things up the San Luis Obispo City, which require a different tax rate, which is here, and we would say even that would apply the 8.75% tax. You see that the amount has changed to $1.09. So that can be affected pretty easily. When you're working on the requisition, the key things are that a supplier has been assigned and that it is the correct supplier. One thing that we found in the workflow of the requisition, meaning the goods and services request, you can access that by clicking on this blue hyperlink. So going to this page gives you all the information that was input by the requester. This is telling you that all the forms are complete. We have a list of questions and general information, including sole source. Sole source should only be used when it is truly a sole source justification, because this does provide additional workflow steps and approvals that would not be necessary if it is not a sole source justification. When we get to the cost details page, here's where you can see what amount was input, the quantity being ordered, unit of measure, and a full description. You can also adjust the commodity code that isn't correct. So from this form, this is not on the requisition. This is the form request again. So if you make changes, you would have to save progress and then always go back to requisition, which you see in the top left here. Once you're back to the requisition, it's, again, only if you need to make changes to what was entered originally. If you find yourself needing to add another line, for example, someone may not have entered shipping, you can always do that right here on the requisition. Since this is one item, we'll check this box and use this arrow to give us more selections. Adding to draft card pending PRPO is what we would select, and what we're looking for is the requisition number, which you can see this one matches the 198898789, and literally we're at a second line to the requisition, and it says successful item added. Occasionally you'll have to refresh the screen, but now you can see there are two items and they're identical. What it's done is it's copied the original one. So for example, if you are adding shipping, you would again go to the goods and services request. And as you can see, each line has its own hyperlink for the goods and services request. By clicking either one of those, it will take you to the request form for that line. And you can only affect one line at a time when you go from the requisition to the goods and services request form. So since we added this as a shipping line, we're going to go back here, and really the only important place to go is the cost details page. So here we can say that shipping is now $2. Call it shipping. Change the commodity code to be a shipping commodity code. We'll make it non-taxable. I save progress. I'm saving this in the form request. We have successfully saved changes. We'll go back to requisition. Now we have $3 total, and all the changes were saved on our secondary line. We can, as you see, that did not make it non-taxable, so we'd have to adjust that even though we said it was not taxable. And you can do that right there on the line. So now we have $3.09. We have $1 an item, $2 in shipping, which are not taxable. Any of these can be revised while you're working in the requisition. Essentially, your job in procurement is to make sure that everything is accurate. There should be a quote. One of the key things that we found after we've gone through implementation, gone live, is the attachments. I can show that too. If you go to the goods and services request form, there is a location where they can add, I'm missing that. there is a form or an element in this request form where you can add a document. There you go. So you can hit yes, and you can attach documents here. However, they do not come over with the requisition. So instead of that, once the requester gets past this step from creating the cart and actually going to checkout, they will have this attachments column. And here's where they should be adding an attachment. This will be a place for quotes, supporting docs, and all of this is accessible by the procurement specialist once it lands in their queue. So it can be set up either as an internal attachment. If you have, for example, a sole source justification, that could be uploaded as an internal attachment specifically for being in the system of record. An external attachment could be added, such as a quote or an estimate that you want to go to the supplier along with the purchase order. So this is a very important thing, because if you have it only on the form request, procurement specialists have to go to that form request to try and find it. It's very time consuming. That's a not efficient way to do it. So I think most campuses that are going live, have gone live, are putting the attachments in this couple. We can also delete a line once you've got this. If, for example, something is not going to be purchased, or it's not a relevant or active item, you can again check the line you wish to delete. Go to your menu. So here, no, reject. So we would reject the line and say, we're just going to put a note in the test. And in the system, in various areas, you'll find that message will come up wanting to put a note in. Pretty important that notes go in to identify exactly what actions were taken. In any case, so that line's now been rejected. As you can see, it's reflected in the total. Chart field information can also be updated. As you can see now, this is no longer an active line. I don't have any of the pencils. The pencils are what typically allow us to edit particular fields or sections within the system. No penciling means you cannot edit anything. And since I just rejected this particular line, I can no longer work on it. However, if you wanted to amend a chart field on an active line, you can do that here. It's fairly intuitive. Clicking the magnifying glass will bring up a field where you can put a value. You can filter. What it does is it searches for all of those with those characters. Using the plus sign is how you would select it. This is obviously populated with a predetermined chart field, but each one of these can be populated the same way. Anything that's not listed, for example, if the account code is populated automatically based on a commodity code selected when the requisition is created. If that does not align with what chart field the requester is looking to use, the account override can be used, and it's the same functionality. So magnifying glass, searching, and then populating it by clicking the plus sign. Throughout all of the processes, once you have a valid quote or estimate, all of the values seem to align with what you're purchasing. You have confirmed that it's the right supplier. From here, you have all of these functions that you can utilize. If it's good to go, you can approve it. If it needs additional items or elements, you can return it to the requester. For example, say you're looking through the workflow. It's another good thing to point out is the workflow show you all the steps that it's been through. It was created. It's usually going to go through at least a minimum DOA approval step to ensure its budget approved. If there are other steps that are necessary along the way, such as an IT review, facilities review, marketing review, a fleet review, we use a lot of different workflow steps on our campus that happen before they get to the procurement specialist. All of those will be listed here. And then once it gets to procurement, procurement is typically the final step unless there are procurement director reviews. And that would entail approval for sole source justifications, higher monetary dollar approvals for the procurement specialist if their assigned authority is exceeded by the total of the requisition, goes to a procurement director again for approval. So in any case, all these are here. The last steps here, requisition validation and create PO and finish, those are all automated steps once you've done your part and approved. So again, if you wanted to return it, you can do that. It goes back to the requester. The requisition could be forwarded to another user if it's not your particular campus client, or you need someone else to work on it. You can forward it to them. You can also reject it. Reject it kills it forever. It will never come back. In cases where the order can't be fixed or corrected, you would reject it. In our case, most of those occur if someone uses our IT hardware request form from the home page to create a requisition for Dell, for example, with an attached quote. Dell does not accept orders that are not electronic and created from their punch out. So if it's been submitted from a request form, we can't do anything with it, so we reject it. And really, it's going to be submitted again. And we can put a note in when it is rejected, and we'll do that. I'll reject this requisition just for demonstration purposes. Again, here you get the reason, and here you can type why it was rejected. In the case of Dell, not from a punch out, it was simply this order is not from a punch out. And messaging the client would also be best practice for us to have them understand exactly why it was rejected. So we'll put test here, and we'll reject it. Now this one is dead forever. With that, I think we've covered most of the requisition functionalities. Adjusted the prices, tax lines, chart fields. I'll turn it back over to June.
Thank you, Ashley. So I'm going to go ahead and if you could stop sharing, Ash, perfect. Let's view a requisition that Ashley has already approved in the past. And so we can view all the workflow steps. So we can see here's a requisition, who submitted it. We can see the DOA approval workflow step. And then also there was an IT approval step. And then finally, Ashley did his approval for procurement. It went through the background validation steps, which is all system generated. It created the purchase order and then completed. What's great is all of the forms are attached. So if you go to the related documents, if there's a purchase order that's been created, there's a hyperlink right there that you can easily navigate to. Now say that there's also a voucher already created. It will also be listed here under related documents. So all of your documents will always stay together so that you can seamlessly navigate to either the requisition, PO, voucher, and then you can also view any kind of receiving, such as receipts on the PO. So let's go ahead. We can look at this purchase order by simply navigating on the blue hyperlink number. Here's the purchase order that was created from the requisition over here. You can see now the related documents list the requisition. So on this purchase order, you can see and view how it was created. Let's go ahead and search for purchase orders now. Navigating to the flyout of the orders, we can go into purchase orders. If you remember, all orders allow you to see all of your campus's requisition, POs, or change requests. Under My Orders is where you'd find your specific requisitions, purchase orders, and vouchers. So let's go ahead and search all purchase orders. We can see on the layout of the search purchase orders, on the left-hand side, we have quick filters, such as if you want to only see purchase orders from Amazon, you can click on this one. It also gives you a detail of how many purchase orders have been created for this supplier. There's also quick filters for the PO status. Have they been completed or rejected? Business units, PO owner, so that is the individual that submitted the requisition into workflow. They're the PO owner. You can also see the prepared by, and if there's any voucher statuses or vouchers attached to the PO. Once we go ahead and search for the purchase orders, remember the creation date is always going to default to the last 90 days. So if you're trying to view a purchase order that was created beyond 90 days, you would want to go ahead and click the drop down and either select all or give it a time period that you want to go ahead and view those POs. You also have the ability to add a filter. So you can add a filter by putting in a buyer, selecting buyer, and then search values. This is going to populate all the buyers. So let's go ahead. We can navigate and narrow our search down to just Ashley's purchase orders that he was the buyer on and apply. Another thing is you can choose the gear icon on the right-hand side. From previous sessions, we went ahead and viewed this, how you can go ahead and set up your configured column display. You can change how you want to view it, add additional elements, or remove them by selecting the trash can. Another thing to notate is that you have the ability to go ahead and navigate seamlessly to the purchase orders since they're all hyperlinked right here, as well as the requisition number. So if you want to go straight to the requisition based off the purchase order you located, you can simply navigate and select the blue hyperlink. You can see I have the PO owner, the shipment status, matching status, meaning did they complete the receiving, and the total amount. The next thing to view is that purchase orders typically start with the 2-4. There are also purchase orders that start with DP. That means that the requisition was created from a direct pay request form. So those are identified with the DP in front of any numerical value. So you can see there was a direct pay for AT&T Company, level 3 financing, Burke Williams and Sorensen. Let's go ahead and look at this purchase order right here. On the purchase order, let's go ahead and view the summary on the right-hand side and the workflow steps. So we can see on the actual purchase order, no actual user does any touch points on it. It's submitted automatically by the system itself, and it's going to list the actual PO owner, who is the one that submitted the requisition into workflow. And then it's a system-generated revised PO workflow step. And then it goes into the PO distribution. So that means that it's distributing this purchase order, this request for goods or service to the supplier by their chosen methodology. Typically, it's going to be email, so it'll be routed by email. Then the next step would be to export the PO to CFS. This means that it's exporting to the common financial system and placing a hold on the chart field string that was utilized on the requisition. And then finally, it's completed. As you can see by the submission date and time, 1/12, it also completed by 1/12. So it's very quick. The next thing that you can view on the purchase order is the summary tab. You can see the revision because there's always going to be one. If there's any shipping details, so like our punch-out suppliers, Staples may have the shipment already listed there, so you can go ahead and navigate to it. If there's any change requests created, receipts, since the receipts are created on the purchase order itself, if there's any attached vouchers, comments, attachments, and then history. So let's go ahead and view the history section. The history section is available on all of the forms, so such as the requisition, purchase order, voucher, change request, receipt, etc. What's great about the history section, it's going to document anybody or the system itself that has done anything to the requisition, purchase order, or voucher. So we can see under this history that right here, here's the date and time, the user, it was all system generated workflow steps, the action that was taken, the field name, what the past element was and what it changed to, and any notes. So we can see that the PO was created via the system. There was a defined tax engine run. Then the PO was revised and finalized. The next was the PO was sent via HTML body email to the supplier via the email that they had set up during their supplier registration. Then next, it's going to export the PO to CFS. So it's export sent to the external system. It was queued up for submission. The PO approvals were completed. And then finally, the PO exported to the external system, meaning the PO was successfully distributed to the ERP system, meaning there is now a hold on the chart fill string utilized in CFS. If there are any issues with the PO, such as exporting to CFS or distributing to the supplier, you can locate and identify any of the issues and then troubleshoot from there. As we go back to the actual PO, you can see that all the information was carried over from the requisition, such as the general information, address information, and PO information. Below that, you're going to see the supplier information, so the address that they have, any kind of PO terms and conditions that needed to be automatically applied or applied by the buyer. And right here, you can see notes and attachments. So here's an internal attachment. As you scroll down, you can see that your line items are going to look exactly how they were on the requisition, where it actually has a line level itself, the form utilized to create the line, the item description, and cost details. And here's the chart filtering that was utilized. You always have the ability to select this print icon, which allows you to go ahead and view the summary and print it if you need it for your own records. This is how the PO summaries are going to be distributed to your supplier via email. They'll also receive the PO in their CSUBUY supplier portal. Lastly, on the PO, you can have actions right here, such as add comments, create a change request, add notes, cancel the PO. So say that it was an accident, you do not need this order anymore. Maybe the supplier no longer has the item in stock. As a buyer, you have the ability to go ahead and cancel the PO. And then what that's going to do is that you're going to inform the supplier that you no longer need this purchase request. And also it's going to inform CFS to remove the hold on the chart field string, so unencumber the funds. You can print the PO right here. You have the option to soft close it or close the PO. You can also resend it to the supplier. So state the supplier reaches out and states they never received the purchase request created from the system. You have the ability to go ahead and resend it to the supplier. Sometimes you might need to close a PO. So say it's an amount only or open PO. Once you have completed the request or utilized all the funds up, you have the ability to go in and close the PO. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ashley and allow him to speak a little bit more on the buyer's perspective of the change request process.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. In the world of change request is ultimately new terminology for a change order. So if you have a PO that exists, we need to make changes, and it's normally done through the change request process. This could be a change in the value of a line, the overall total of a purchase order, a chart field change, any reason to update or change the purchase order would come through a change request. The beauty of the change request in CSUBUY world is that it goes through all of the workflow steps that were initially required for the requisition. In some cases, their workflow steps included may not really be relevant if it's just a financial change. As an example, if there were originally an IT review or a marketing review, it would still go through those steps, even though we're simply changing the financial elements of the purchase order. If we look at a change request, I think we've got a couple here we can review. What will happen is you'll see the reason for the change request, and that's here on the top in the change request reason. And we scroll down to the line information. We see that this one does not have anything highlighted in blue, so no changes were actually made by the user to indicate what needed to be updated. The change request process for the user normally entails them actually making changes. For example, it states they need a line added for fuel charges. So this PO has one line, and we could add a line to it. In this case, they did not indicate what the value of that secondary line would be, so I can't really process this and demonstrate it, show you. Let's try another change request and see if there's something that does show changes. So here in this case, you can see that something was changed. This highlighted blue field for accounting date has been updated. In this case, there are new attachments in the internal attachments section. And the request is adding money to the PO for the next quarter. So those changes would normally be input by the user. If they are not, you can go to the goods and service request, like we did in the previous demonstration for the requisition, make the changes on the cost details page. We'll go there just to show you what it is. Cost details, and here you can update it. I did not assign this to myself since this is another buyer's queue. However, if you assign it to yourself, you then do have the ability to update and amend any of these fields on this page. And they should coincide with what the request was. Again, once you've made the changes, you would save at the bottom and go back to the change request. There are times when you receive a change request and it is literally only the note at the top. In some cases, if you are processing changes from the change request and no other things have been updated, you can go back to the PO. And sometimes it's more effective to go to the PO and make the changes here. For example, if you need to add a line, you can do so here through this process. And you will be adding it to the PO, to a PO revision. That's important to note that it's not on a change request because you are working on the PO, as you can see by the PO number here. So you go to add to PO revision. There's a field that comes up where you need to populate the PO number, so we'll actually add it to the right PO. Again, I'm not going to make the changes to this since it's not on the change request. Many of these come through. We have change requests come through for most of our hospitality events. In the case of a hospitality event, they have an estimate, which truly is an estimate and does not necessarily or ever reflect what the final total is once they had the event. Once it concludes, they obviously have a final bill based on the attendance, and we can have the user submit a change request and amend the total. And again, the best part of it is it's all approved and it's gone through the workflow steps to ensure that the financial changes are approved by the DOA approver. We'll go through here. You can see that this one was DOA approved. There was also a secondary review for the fund that was selected. So CSUBUY fund, and then it was finally landed in my queue as procurement specialist. And again, all of this we want a change request. Having visibility to all of the workflow is one of the greatest benefits of the tool. The ability to click and link to the requisition or purchase order from any one of the three connected items. If there are vouchers, they will also fall into the related documents field, and you can get to any one of those from one point. The change request process, I think, is beneficial for the procurement team, knowing that it's financially approved. In the old days, we would request that the person asking for the change get the approving official send an email to the procurement specialist, and that was our validation. And that's probably not great to stand up in an audit. And we were having to take those emails and save them with our documents in ImageNow, and obviously have to search for those if they're needed. In this case, all the records remain within CSUBUY. They're easily accessible, and there's no question whether or not it's approved. Anything that gets changed, if you wanted to change something on a purchase order, for example, those changes can be made as well. You go to the purchase order. All the changes for any of this information on the line can be changed. And this is not even having a change request. The procurement specialist has the ability to change these elements without a change request. Can be updated from the goods and service request. Again, going there gives you all the fields accessible. What I would say is not making financial changes without any DOE approval is the way that we work. We would want that to go through a change request process, but if there are details that need to be changed that aren't financial related, you can do that here. If you did need to break things out, for example, if there were 2 items that were being purchased, one was $20,000, one was $10,000, again, you can amend that by adding a line to a PO revision. Once you've made your changes, you would go to the ellipsis and finalize the revision. That's the last step that actually completes the changes, and that will get it completed within the system. Without doing that, we will not. The changes won't show up and be effective from there forward. Other things that are related to change requests, well, anything that needs to be changed should be submitted by the requester. All of the cues, again, same as everything else. We can see the workflow or the things pending for other buyers, and again, can be taken. This is true for everything within the system that we see. Under my action requests, I can see all the various things that would be necessary: procurement requests, change requests, requisitions, and everything. I will turn it back over to June.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. I'm going to show you guys a change request that has started its workflow. And so you can see the difference between the change requests and the changes made on it. So now we're back on our shopping homepage, the default area. We can go to our orders flyout and go to change requests. So let's go ahead and view some change requests. This first one right here, we can see that it's pending. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. What's great about the change request, it's going to highlight in this type of light blue coloring what changes have been made so that it's easy identifiable when it's going back through all of the workflow steps. So just like Ashley said, any changes that you're making on that PO change request, it's going to go through all of those same workflow steps again to get approval for the changes needed. So we can see right here, here's the change request reason. Can you change the CFS for the add-ons? And they gave us the chart field string to match the rest of the purchase order. So we can scroll down here. We can see that Darren was the buyer and he made the changes. And we can see right here highlighted on line level 2, the fund and the debt ID were modified and changed. And that is identified with that light blue kind of highlight. It also highlighted the subtotal and actual sales tax because of just utilizing the different chart field string. So you can see that this actual change request was resubmitted. It went through the DOA approval step and needs to now go through the IT review. So Matt Weber has been sent the notification he has something to approve. And then finally, I'll go back through the procurement review step and Danielle will go ahead and approve it. Then I'll go through the background validations, a PO update, and then go ahead and finish. And then that's going to update the purchase order to reflect the changes requested on the change request itself. So that's a little glimpse into the actual change request forms. You can view that the comments carry over, the attachments do as well. Under the related documents, you can seamlessly navigate to the PO or requisition. You can view on the history tab the changes. So you can see right here, here's the requester. She added a comment on the PO change request. For a user, they have to be the PO owner. So that's the individual that submitted the requisition into workflow, or a buyer can initiate a PO change request. So she stated what she needed changed on the purchase order. And then you can see right up here, it went through the system, the background validation steps, and then to the DO approver, and then he approved it. And then next, it's going to go to the IT review step. So that's a glance into the actual change request forms itself. Going back to the homepage, let's review what we went over in today's session. So in today's session, yeah.
One thing we didn't cover is change requests if there is an active voucher.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's go ahead and view change requests. So if you have a change request, so you already have the requisitions been completed and the purchase order has been completed as well, Say that there's already a voucher attached to it. Say it's an open PO and the change request is to add more funds to line 1. You would have to wait for that voucher that's been applied to complete all of its workflow steps prior to having the ability to initiate a PO change request. So you can either, A, if the voucher does not need to be paid at this time, or the voucher is dependent on the PO change request itself to increase the funds on it, then you can either reject the voucher or say the voucher needs to be processed and this change request is for the next voucher that's going to be applied. You can wait until that voucher has completed its workflow steps to then initiate a PO change request. So typically those PO change requests are on amount only POs, blanket POs. You're going to have multiple vouchers applied to the PO. So just be careful and be aware that you'll notice the ability to create a PO change request. So we can look at a PO. You would not have the ability to go ahead and initiate one. It's not going to be available in the drop down. So let's go ahead and look at a PO, right? Let's find this one right down here. It already has a voucher attached to it. We can see under the related documents. As we navigate to the ellipses on the top here, you can see it does not have the ability to create a PO change request. That is because a voucher has already been applied to it and it's in process. Compared to if we look at another purchase order, such as this Staples one, that one has a voucher too, I believe. Let me find the first one I had. Let's see if this one will have it, since this one has a voucher attached. So if we wanted to find a PO that does not have a voucher attached, you would go ahead and utilize your filters and locate one. So let's go ahead and tie up today's session. So today we went over specifically for procurement for buyers. We went over locating your approvals. So you can find them in the approval folder, the quick order search under my approvals, the orders flyout for approvals, requisitions to approve, or your action tabs right on the top up here if you had a requisition to approve. We went over all of the functionalities that you have as an approver in the system, such as approving, rejecting, returning to requester or returning to shared folder, putting it on hold, or forwarding the requisition to another buyer. We also looked at the history tab and noticed how it documents anybody or the system itself that does any modifications to the requisition, PO, or voucher. We also then dive in deep with Ashley, which was going over how to add lines, view the actual form itself, make any modifications to the cost details and the chart filled string. Then we viewed purchase orders, how to locate purchase orders, how to modify the search for purchase orders, as well as the history on them. We talked about exporting to CFS to place a hold on the funds with the PO, as well as the PO distribution to the supplier themselves. Then Ashley went into change requests of the perspective of the buyer. Then we reviewed change requests and how that they are identified, the changes, by the highlighted light blue color. So finally, I'm going to just end on the slide that we reviewed last time. So over the last few sessions, we went over the shopper and requester view and all the functionalities and abilities of shoppers and requesters. We then went into DOA approvers and secondary approvers, such as like ITS or fleet. And today we reviewed the procurement approval buyer workflow step. Next week, we're going to be reviewing payment processing. So we're going to go over searching for vouchers, being able to, the AP view, we're going to have our AP manager available. She's going to go through all of the AP abilities and functionalities. I'm going to go over receiving, and then finally the payment processing. So I appreciate everyone's time today. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next week.